Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. We'll start with the Mangalacharan. Om Jnana-Timrandasya Jnananjana-Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namah Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Swapatantikam Vandeyam Sri Guru Sri Yudapadakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagarjatam Sagana Raghunathan Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvitam Savadutam Paljana Svitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Sri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste तप्त कांचना गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये पंचकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय Hare Krishna. So we'll continue with verse 36 from chapter 11, canto 1. Last week we had already started with the purport, but we saw regarding Sanatana Dharma as mentioned here. So in this purport, it has been mentioned regarding Sanatana Dharma and also Varṇāśrama-dharma. So last week you saw regarding Sanatana Dharma quite in detail. Even the explanation has been provided by Srila Prabhupada in the introduction to Gita, starting from the last paragraph in page 15. The intro chapter itself is like around 32 pages. So in that intro of 30 pages, Srila Prabhupada has actually given the most comprehensive executive summary of the entire Bhagavad Gita. So even for those who may not have studied all the 18 chapters, at least even if they study the intro chapter, which is about 30 pages, even that itself will give them a very good understanding, like a very overall explanation. Then that could help them to further understand chapter by chapter. So last week we saw the explanation regarding Sanatana Dharma, but it was not complete because Srila Prabhupada has actually given a very detailed explanation in the intro to Bhagavad Gita. So Srila Prabhupada has explained regarding Sanatana Dharma based on the two keywords. First, he explains regarding the meaning of Sanatana, followed by the meaning of Dharma. So we'll just quickly recap what we saw last week. Regarding the word Sanatana, we know that in Gita 8.15, Krishna says, Mamapetya Punarjanma Dukkalayam Ashashvatam. When Krishna is talking about this material world, he is referring to it as Dukkalayam, the temporary place of misery. Now he terms it as Dukkalayam because this material universe is a place of misery where we are always all the conditioned souls are always subject to the repeated cycles of Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi, birth, death, old age, and disease. And even while we are being in one particular body, like now we have got this human form of life, this material body of human being. As we know, there are 84 lakh material species, 84 lakh species of material bodies. So even before this, we as spirit souls, we have actually taken up all those lakhs of material bodies, and even while being encased in a particular material body, we are also subject to the threefold miseries. The four miseries of Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi, they occur as we transmigrate. As the soul transmigrates from one material body to another, the cycle continues. And even while we are being in one particular body, we are subject to the threefold miseries: Adhyatmic, Adi Devik, Adi Bhautik. Those miseries caused by the demigods, those which are caused by other living entities, and also the ones caused by material nature. So we can see that many of the natural disasters, they come under the Adi Bhautik Klesh meaning the miseries. So that's why Krishna says that this material universe is Dukkalayam. We can never experience happiness or bliss in this material universe, regardless of whether we are in this middle planet or even if we get elevated to the upper planetary systems. Even in the heavenly planets, we cannot experience any bliss. We can only experience temporary happiness. Even in Gita 2.14, Krishna says, Matra Sparshas tu Kamteya, Sidoshna Sugadukara, Agama Paino Anitya, Stam Titik Seshwa Bharata. The dualities of happiness and distress, they always come and go, just like the seasons of Sidoshna, meaning the summer and winter seasons. So we cannot ask for the winter season to remain all the time. It will keep continuing in cycles. So similarly, we'll also be experiencing the dualities of happiness, distress, profit, loss. So all these things are, we have to experience all these in the material universe. So contrary to our expectation, though we were originally spirit souls, we wanted to be enjoyers and controllers, and that's why we ended up in this material universe from the spiritual sky. But contrary to our expectation, we can never experience permanent bliss in this material universe, simply because this is not meant to be our abode. We belong to the spiritual world simply because we are part and parcel of Krishna, as he himself says in Gita 15.7, Mamayanso Jivaloke Jivabhuta Sanatana Manashastani Indriyani Prakristani Karshati. All the living entities are eternal fragmental parts of Krishna, and since we are encaged in this material body with all the material senses, we are struggling. So in 8.15, Krishna says that this material universe is Dukkalayam, and in 15.7, Krishna says that all the conditioned souls are struggling with the material senses in this Dukkalayam. But in chapter 8, after 8.15, Krishna used to describe about how this Dukkalayam is also temporary, because starting from the creation of the material universes, the first Purusha avatar, that is the Mahavishnu incarnation, beginning from that, the Ma Tattva is created, followed by the creation of innumerable material universes. Then the material universes are occupied by the living entities who are accompanied by Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, the Paramatma. So those material universes remain for a specific period of time, because in each material universe there's one Garbhodakashayi Vishnu from whom Brahma is born. So the material universe remains throughout the life of Brahma, but there's also the partial annihilation during the night of Brahma. All the 14 planetary systems, they become manifest during the day of Brahma, and during the night of Brahma there's partial annihilation. When the Garbhodaka ocean water rises, all the planets below Brahmaloka or Satyaloka, the abode of Brahma, all those planets become unmanifest. Then again, during the day of Brahma, those planets become manifest again. So the cycle continues. So even if we consider that partial annihilation, there's always the cycle. It keeps switching. There are two terms which actually describe the material nature. Commonly, we know that Prakriti refers to material nature, but it refers to material nature in the manifest form. Originally, before it became manifest, from the Mahatattva, when it was still in the unmanifest state, it is called Pradhana. Pradhana is in the unmanifest state. When it becomes manifest, we call it Prakriti. So even during one full day of Brahma, there's always the cycle of the material nature becoming manifest and unmanifest. And during towards the end of Brahma's life, after 100 years of the life of Brahma, then the complete annihilation happens. When the material universe is completely destroyed, even Brahma meets his death after 100 years. That is roughly 311 trillion and 40 billion years according to our human years. So even Brahma has to die. So that nature of the material universe is described as temporary. So not only it is Dukkalayam, it is also temporary, because it keeps going through the cycles of creation and annihilation. But in direct contrast to this material nature, there is the spiritual sky, which is called the Sanatana sky. This spiritual Sanatana sky is eternal. There is no creation and annihilation. It always remains as it is. So starting from Gita 8.16, for a few verses, Krishna continues to describe regarding how the partial and complete annihilation of the material universes take place. And then in 8.20 and 8.21, Krishna describes about the Sanatana sky, which is eternal. So the meaning of Sanatana itself means that it is eternal. So just like the spiritual sky, where the spiritual dhams, the supreme abodes like Goloka Vrindavana, Mathura, Dwaraka, and also the Vaikuntha planets, they are part of the spiritual sky. Even from chapter 6 of Canto 2, in the conversation between Narada Muni and Brahma describes that the spiritual sky, the entire spiritual sky, represents 3/4 of the Supreme Lord's energy, and this material nature is only 1/4 of his energy. However, this material nature is a place of darkness where we are presently stuck in, though our original identity is that we, the Jivas, we are also Sanatana, just like the spiritual sky, and that's why that spiritual sky is actually our original abode. So our current position is something like, as Srila Prabhupada would describe, that we are like fish taken out from the water. So fish can never live happily when it is taken out of the water. So that is our present condition. Since we left the spiritual sky, according to our own will, our nature is that we belong to the spiritual sky. We belong to the eternal Dharma, since we are part and parcel of Krishna, but we ourselves chose this place of darkness. We chose this Dukkalayam, and that's why we are suffering here. Therefore, as eternal jivas, as the eternally fragmented part and parcel of Krishna, we have to revive our Sanatana occupation or Sanatana Dharma, which is the eternal occupation of all living entities, not just for human beings. It is the eternal occupation of all living entities. And that's why Sanatana Dharma is completely non-sectarian. Unlike the concept of religion, which is often used to materially designate human beings, Sanatana Dharma is the eternal occupation of all living entities, not just for human beings. So that Sanatana Dharma is all about our eternal relationship with Krishna. So since we have got this rare human form of life, we have to utilize this opportunity to revive our Sanatana Dharma so that we can regain Krishna's association in the Sanatana sky. And there's also explanation regarding the word dharma. Dharma, roughly translated, it should actually mean occupation, which is related to the characteristic nature of a certain entity. It cannot be equated to religion, though the word religion is often used to describe dharma, but the exact notion is completely different. Dharma is not about material designation. Religion is a material designation and it is sectarian. But Sanatana Dharma is not sectarian. It applies to all living entities. So as described by the Acharyas, the Dharma cannot be sectarian and it cannot be limited by any boundaries. And since the word Sanatana itself means eternal, that's why many of the so-called celebrated historians, they can never give any date to describe when our Sanatana Dharma actually began. There are specific dates for other religions, but none of the celebrated historians could give any date regarding when our Sanatana Dharma actually began, because it is eternal. It can never be created nor destroyed. So it is eternally existing, just like how liquidity cannot be taken from water, nor heat can be taken from fire. Water only in its liquid state can be used to quench our thirst. We cannot swallow ice cubes to quench our thirst. So similarly, when our original identity as eternal servants of Krishna, when we fail to realize that we are meant to be eternal servants of Krishna, that's when all the problems starts. So since we forgot our original identity as Sanatana living entities who are meant to be eternal servants of Krishna, and we actually wanted to be enjoyers and controllers, that's when all the problems started. So as stated by Srila Prabhupada, non-Sanatana religious faith may have some beginnings, but there is no beginning to the history of Sanatana Dharma, because it remains eternally with the living entities. again, Dharma is applicable to all living entities. So it is non-sectarian. So we actually stopped in this paragraph. So we will continue with the remaining part. Still, there is some in-depth explanation regarding Sanatana Dharma. Then we'll look at some explanation regarding Varṇāśrama-dharma. When Sanatana Goswami asked Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu about the Swarupa of every living being, meaning the original constitutional position of every living being, the Lord replied that the Swarupa or constitutional position is rendering service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we as eternal part and parcel of Krishna, we are meant to be eternal servants. So if we forget that original identity of ours, and if we try to take up some other roles, like to become enjoyers and controllers, then we can never be happy. We'll only be suffering as we are suffering now. If we analyze this statement of Lord Chaitanya, we can easily see that every living being is constantly engaged in rendering service to another living being. We actually wanted to enjoy, we wanted to be enjoyers and controllers, but even now, in our present condition, we can hardly be enjoyers or controllers. We still end up rendering service to many other people around us. A living being serves other living beings in various capacities. By doing so, the living entity enjoys life. The lower animals serve human beings as servants serve their master. A serves B master, B serves C master, and C serves D master, and so on. Under these circumstances, we can see that one friend serves another friend. The mother serves the son, the wife serves the husband serves the wife, and so on. If we go on searching in this spirit, it will be seen that there is no exception in the society of living beings to the activity of service. The politician presents his manifesto for the public to convince them of his capacity for service. The voters therefore give the politician their valuable votes, thinking that he will render valuable service to society. The shopkeeper serves the customer, and the artisan serves the capitalist. The capitalist serves the family, and the family serves the state in terms of eternal capacity of the eternal living being. In this way, we can see that no living being is exempt from rendering service to other living beings, and therefore we can safely conclude that service is the constant companion of the living being, and that the rendering of service is the eternal religion of the living being. So though we actually wanted to be enjoyers and controllers, we still cannot avoid from rendering service to others, even in this material universe. Even to earn our living, we still have to provide some service. To actually, even to earn money, we have to provide some service. And even by earning money, we actually want to provide service to our loved ones. So we can never escape from that responsibility, which is our eternal dharma. But we are now trapped in this material world, which is actually the perverted reflection of the spiritual world. In the spiritual world, we are supposed to be serving Krishna, but due to our material contamination, we are now serving everyone else but Krishna. So that is the root cause of the problem. Yet man professes to belong to a particular type of faith with reference to particular time and circumstance, and thus claims to be a Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, or an adherent of any other sect. So all these so-called religions are all sectarian beliefs, which are often used to designate human beings. But Dharma is part of all living entities, not just for human beings, and therefore it is non-sectarian, and it can never be changed, unlike religion. Such designations are non-Sanatana Dharma. A Hindu may change his faith to become a Muslim, or a Muslim may change his faith to become a Hindu, or a Christian may change his faith, and so on. So even when you talk about this changing of faith or conversion, as we know it commonly, even that is always driven by material motivations. There are actually a lot of material benefits that people actually seek when it comes to conversion, though they may say that they have found something else, they have been enlightened by something else, but it is often materially motivated because the concept of religion itself is a material designation, unlike dharma. But in all circumstances, the change of religious faith does not affect the eternal occupation of rendering service to others. The Hindu, Muslim, or Christian, in all circumstances, is a servant of someone. Thus, to profess a particular type of faith is not to profess one's Sanatana Dharma. The rendering of service is Sanatana Dharma. So, whether we like it or not, we can never cease from serving others. According to our original identity, we are supposed to be serving Krishna, but since we are materially contaminated in this material world, we are serving everyone else but Krishna. And Krishna is always happy to facilitate us according to our needs. Even we have got this present apartment called the human material body, because Krishna wants to facilitate us, because we still have some, there is still some material contamination in our spirit soul, though attaining this human form of life is itself quite an achievement, considering our past, where we were forced to take up many other lower forms of life. Now that we have actually attained this kind of a prestigious position compared to the other forms of life, because in this human form of life, we have the opportunity to practice Krishna consciousness. We have the ability to engage in spiritual inquiry and also to engage in devotional service. So by properly utilizing this opportunity, we can elevate ourselves to the spiritual world. But if we continue to be bewildered by the force of Maya, and if we continue to be servants of Maya, and if we don't even endeavor to become servants of Krishna, then we still have to go through the same miseries in many other different species of material bodies. So it has become clear that we can never cease from being servants. Whether we are in the material world or even in the spiritual world, we have to always act as servants. In the material world, we are serving Maya. In the spiritual world, we would be serving Krishna, which would give us permanent bliss. But due to our material contamination, we are actually serving Maya in this material world. So since it has become clear that we can never escape from being a servant, so it is best to regain our eternal association with Krishna as his eternal servants. Because to be the servants of Maya in this material universe, we get nothing but misery in return. But it is the exact opposite in the case of the spiritual world. Factually, we are related to the Supreme Lord in service. The Supreme Lord is the supreme enjoyer, and we living entities are his servitors. We are created for his enjoyment, and if we participate in that eternal enjoyment with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we become happy. We cannot become happy otherwise. It is not possible to be happy independently, just as no part of the body can be happy without cooperating with the stomach, it is not possible for the living entity to be happy without rendering transcendental loving service unto the Supreme Lord. So this has also been something similar has also been mentioned by Narada Muni in Canto 4, chapter 31, the last chapter of Canto 4, in verse 14, 4:31-14. Narada Muni instructs the Prachetas, Yata Tarur Mula Nishechanena, Tripyanti Tatskanta Bujopashaka, Pranopahara, Chaitendriyanam, Tataiva Sarvaranam Achyutedya. So in that verse, Narada Muni explains that just as watering the roots of a plant nourishes the entire plant or tree, and just as supplying food to the stomach nourishes the entire body, similarly, worshipping Lord Achyuta, Krishna, will also satisfy all the demigods. So the demigods are also part and parcel of Krishna. And when we worship Krishna, there's no question of disrespecting the demigods, because very often we hear that the demigod worshippers, they often accuse us of disrespecting the demigods. But when we are worshipping Krishna, we are actually satisfying all the demigods. Unlike the demigod worshippers who pick and choose, we are worshipping all the demigods. We are satisfying all of them simply by worshipping Krishna, and it is in line with the teachings of our Acharya, that is Narada Muni. So even in that example, the entire body gets nourished when food is supplied to the stomach. We cannot supply food to other parts of the body and expect the body to get nourished. So similarly, we cannot become happy unless we work towards satisfying the senses of Krishna. So this is regarded as the highest perfection of life. As eternal servants of Krishna, we should always aim to satisfy the senses of Krishna in any way that is possible. Because even in Gita 9.27, Krishna says, Yat karosi yat yasanasi, yat josi dadasi yat tapasesi kaunteya, tat kurusva madarpanam. So Krishna himself, he is telling how to satisfy him. So whatever we do, whatever we eat, whatever charity we perform, so everything should be dedicated to Krishna. So by doing so, we can satisfy him. We ourselves, we can only satisfy ourselves by satisfying Krishna, because we are his eternal parts and parcels. So the body only gets nourished when we supply food to the stomach. We cannot supply food to the arms and legs. So we are like the arms and legs. So when we try to find pleasure on our own, we can never attain such pleasures. So we ourselves, we can only experience satisfaction when we work for the satisfaction of Krishna. So there are also further explanation regarding the spiritual world, but in this part of the introduction to Gita, starting from the last paragraph in page 15, Srila Prabhupada has actually given such in-depth explanation regarding both the meaning of the word Sanatana and also the meaning of the word Dharma. So when we talk about Sanatana Dharma, it is such a huge topic, and there's so much in-depth explanation as given by Srila Prabhupada in this intro chapter to Gita. So only those illiterate idiots who know nothing about our authentic and authorized scriptures, only those idiots will talk about eradication of Sanatana Dharma. They don't even know the meaning of Sanatana Dharma, and still they would talk nonsense only for their political purposes. Also, there's a mention of about Varṇāśrama-dharma. So before I proceed, can anyone tell me whether are these the same is Sanatana Dharma the same as Varṇāśrama-dharma? Can anyone answer? Are both the same? Please try. Okay. So we saw that Sanatana Dharma refers to the eternal occupation or the eternal dharma of all living entities. So it is more about the spiritual aspect, but Varṇāśrama-dharma is more of a material designation. It is especially meant for us, the human beings, about how we should perform our material duties in such a way that it also allows us to realize our Sanatana Dharma. Both are related, but they are not exactly the same. Varṇāśrama-dharma is more related to the material aspects. It is a materially designated system, but still it still acts as the means towards the goal, which is Sanatana Dharma. Varṇāśrama-dharma is the means towards the goal of regaining our Sanatana Dharma. So regarding Varnas, in Gita 4.13, Krishna says, Chaturvarnyam maya system gunakarma vibhagasa tasya kartaram abhima vidya kartaram avyayam. Chaturvarnyam, the four divisions of human society. Maya, by me, Shrishtam, created, guna, of quality, karma, and work, vibhagasa, in terms of division, tasya, of that, kartaram, the father, api, although, mam, me, vidhi, you may know, akartaram, as the non-doer, avyayam, unchangeable. According to the three modes of material nature and the work associated with them, the four divisions of human society are created by me. And although I am the creator of this system, you should know that I am yet the non-doer, being unchangeable. So from the authentic scriptures like Gita, in Gita 4.13, we can clearly see that the Varna system is solely based on gunas and karmas, guna, karma, vibhagasa, and there are only four Varnas. Many of the self-proclaimed intellectuals who also claim to be atheists and rationalists, but their full-time job is only to target Hinduism. This Varṇāśrama-dharma is also one of their favorite punching bag, but since they always try to portray themselves as intellectuals, but in reality they are not, because they have no knowledge regarding what has been mentioned in the authentic scriptures. So from this one verse alone, it is clear that the Varnas, there are only four Varnas, and the division is based on gunas and karmas. Even when we look at the word Varṇāśrama-dharma, only the first part, Varna refers to the four Varnas. Ashrama refers to the four orders of life, like Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyasa. But the so-called intellectuals, they always say that Varnashrama is all about caste. First of all, the word caste itself is a foreign word. It has got nothing to do with Bharat. But these so-called intellectuals who are nothing but coconuts, they are brown on the outside, but they are white inside. This was the main agenda of Macaulay. So these Macaulay Putras, who are so-called intellectuals, they know nothing about the authentic scriptures, but they continue to engage in false propaganda, mainly to satisfy their paymasters. So from this verse, we can see that the four varnas are based on gunas and karmas. And as I mentioned earlier, the difference between Sanatana Dharma and Varṇāśrama-dharma is that Varṇāśrama-dharma is specifically meant to be a materially designated system, because regardless of the fact that we are all engaged in Krishna consciousness, but it is not possible to simply detach from our material body. We are still engaged in this material body, and even to perform our duties in Krishna consciousness, we still need to use our material senses. So this system is still a materially designated system, which enables us to still practice Krishna consciousness. Though we may be engaged in our material duties, we can perform our duties in such a way that it satisfies Krishna. And it is possible to satisfy Krishna through the Varṇāśrama-dharma system, simply because the system itself came from him. And Krishna himself says that he created the Varnas based on the division of gunas and karmas. It has got nothing to do with birth, unlike what the so-called intellectuals always propagate. Of course, they are doing it to satisfy their paymasters. The Lord is the creator of everything. Everything is born of him. Everything is sustained by him. And everything after annihilation rests in him. He is therefore the creator of the four divisions of the social order, beginning with the intelligent class of men, technically called Brahmanas, due to their being situated in the mode of goodness. Next is the administrative class, technically called the Kshatriyas, due to their being situated in the mode of passion. The mercantile class, the mercantile men, called the Vaishyas, are situated in the mixed modes of passion and ignorance, and the Shudras or laborer class are situated in the ignorant mode of material nature. So we can see that all the four varnas are directly related to the modes of material nature. We know that there are three modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. Though the Brahmanas are described as being related to the mode of goodness, but if we clearly understand the concept of the material modes of nature, we will also understand that goodness is still not good enough. We have to transcend the material modes. As long as, even for those who are in complete goodness, still it won't detach them from the material modes, because even goodness is still a material mode of nature. It is important to transcend all the material modes. So that's what Krishna says in chapter 14 of the Gita. Chapter 14 is like an exclusive chapter dedicated to the detailed description about the three modes of material nature. But towards the end of the chapter, especially in verse 26, that is the second last verse in chapter 14, Krishna says, Mam cheva avyapicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samati jaitan brahmo bhuyaya kalpate. In that verse, Krishna says that those who are engaged in devotional service, they can transcend the material modes. So even for the Brahmanas who are associated with the mode of goodness, even they cannot be detached from material nature without transcending. Even they have to transcend the mode of goodness. And regarding Kshatriyas, they are situated in the mode of passion, and Shudras in the mode of ignorance. In Kali Yuga, it has come to the extent of Shudras taking part in administrative duties, and that's why this Kali Yuga is so degraded. So nothing is done according to the Varṇāśrama system during this Kali Yuga, and therefore the Yuga itself is described as the most degraded Yuga. However, merely by chanting the holy names of Krishna, we can still attain the ultimate benefit as described in the last canto of Bhagavatam. In spite of his creating the 4 divisions of human society, Lord Krishna does not belong to any of these divisions because he is not one of the conditioned souls, a section of whom form human society. So this Varṇāśrama-dharma is specifically meant for the human society, though Sanatana Dharma is applicable to all living entities. That is our eternal goal. From our present condition of being conditioned souls, we still need to perform our duties according to the Varṇāśrama-dharma system, because only that would enable us to even perform our material duties in the spirit of Krishna consciousness. Human society is similar to any other animal society, but to elevate man from the animal status, the above mentioned divisions are created by the Lord for the systematic development of Krishna consciousness. The tendency of a particular man toward work is determined by the modes of material nature, which he has acquired. So for those idiots who talk about eradication of Sanatana Dharma, they simply lack even basic IQ, because they don't even know the meaning of the word Sanatana, and such idiots have become elected representatives, and that actually represents the degraded IQ of the voters who elected such idiots. So that's why it has all come to the extent of just like any other animal society. Of course, we cannot expect anything better from a state which depends on the sales of liquor as its one of its main source of revenue. They call it the Dravidian model. The tendency of a particular man toward work is determined by the modes of material nature which he has acquired. Such symptoms of life, according to the different modes of material nature, are described in the 18th chapter of this book. So apart from this verse, there are also further descriptions in chapter 18 regarding the Varnas and how they are related to the different qualities. A person in Krishna consciousness, however, is above even the Brahmanas. Although Brahmanas by quality are supposed to know about Brahman, the supreme absolute truth, most of them approach only the impersonal Brahman manifestation of Lord Krishna. So even among the Brahmana community, nowadays, we can also see people who often say, even I'm a Brahman, but I eat beef. Even I'm a Brahman, I was born in a Brahmana family. So such fools don't even know the meaning of a Brahmana. The status of Brahmana is fully based on the gunas and karmas. It has got nothing to do with birth if you follow the authentic scriptures. But many of the so-called Brahmanas in this Kali Yuga, they simply claim to be Brahmanas because they were born in a Brahmana family, though their occupation got nothing to do with the nature of a Brahmana. Again, that is also another indicator of the degradation of this Yuga. A person in Krishna consciousness, however, is above even the Brahmanas. So another allegation which is put forward by the so-called intellectuals who know nothing about the Varṇāśrama system is that they say that the Brahmanas are the topmost in this system, and therefore it is discriminatory. But those fools don't even know that even the Brahmanas are not regarded as an exception, or their position is not exceptional, or it is not completely elevated. Even the Brahmanas who are associated with the mode of goodness, even they have to transcend the modes. So there is a fifth Varna, which represents the transcending of the modes. That is the position of a true Vaishnava. So anyone can become a Vaishnava, and there are more than enough examples since the Vedic age. Even Vyasadev and Valmiki, they were not Brahmanas by birth, but we are reading the scriptures composed by them, not by any Brahmana who was a Brahmana by birth. But many of the so-called intellectuals, the self-proclaimed intellectuals, know nothing about these. Although Brahmanas by quality are supposed to know about Brahman, the Supreme Absolute Truth, most of them approach only the impersonal Brahman manifestation of Lord Krishna. So we have also seen in many of our thematic study sessions regarding the three levels of Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan realization. So even in these three levels, the Brahman realization is only the most basic level of realization. So even those Brahmanas, though their main duty is to know about Brahman, Brahma Jana iti Brahmana. So a Brahmana is the one who inquires about Brahman. He engages in accumulating knowledge about Brahman, meaning the Param Brahman. But they only end up in gaining knowledge about the impersonal Brahman, which is only the starting point. They often struggle even to attain the full Bhagavan realization, simply because even they are subject to the material modes of nature. Though the Brahmanas are associated with the mode of goodness, still that is also a material mode of nature. So that's why most of the Brahmanas, though they are in full goodness, still to attain the complete Bhagavan realization, still they have to transcend the modes. They also have to attain the status of a Vaishnava. And it is not that only the Brahmanas can attain the status of Vaishnavas. We all can transcend the modes simply by performing our duties. This has also been explained in chapter 18. A man who transcends the limited knowledge of a Brahmana and reaches the knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, meaning the full Bhagavan realization, becomes a person in Krishna consciousness, or in other words, a Vaishnava. So the Vaishnava is the one who has actually transcended all the modes, and a Vaishnava does not belong in any of these materially designated Varnas. So that should be our ultimate goal, to become Vaishnavas, to transcend the modes. Krishna consciousness includes knowledge of all different plenary expansions of Krishna, namely Rama, Narasimha, Varaha, etc. And as Krishna is transcendental to this system of the four divisions of human society, a person in Krishna consciousness is also transcendental to all divisions of human society, whether we consider the divisions of community, nation, or species. So by transcending the modes, when we attain the position of a Vaishnava, we can also transcend the material designations. So that's how we get to regain our Sanatana-dharma. So this system of Varṇāśrama-dharma, though it is materially designated, it still acts as the means towards our spiritual goal, to attain our Sanatana-dharma. So as mentioned earlier, in the purport, there are further explanations regarding Varṇāśrama-dharma, regarding the Varnas, in text 40 of chapter 18 in the Gita. Krishna says, Na tadasti prityam va divi deveshu va puna sattvam prakriti jair muktam yadebi shat tribir gune. There is no being existing either here or among the demigods in the higher planetary systems which is freed from these three modes, born of material nature. In chapter 14 of the Gita, there is explanation regarding the modes of material nature. But even before chapter 14 and also after chapter 14, like in this chapter, chapter 18, there are many further explanations regarding the three modes from various aspects. Like in this chapter 18 itself, before this chapter, before this verse 40, starting from verse 20 onwards, Krishna talks about many aspects according to the three modes, like work in the three modes, knowledge in the three modes, happiness in the three modes. So many aspects are explained according to the three modes. And knowledge regarding the three modes are also important because all the living entities in the material universe, in the three worlds, upper, middle, and lower worlds, we are all bound by the three modes. So only by understanding how these modes work, only then we can transcend the three modes to attain the status of a Vaishnava. Then in verse 41, Krishna says, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishyam, Sudranam cha parantapa, karmani pravibhaktani, swabhava prabhavir gune. Brahmana, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras, Panatapa, O subdue of the enemies, karmani, the activities, pravibhaktani, are divided, swabhava, their own nature, prabhave, born of gune, by the three modes of material nature. Again, this is similar to what Krishna spoke earlier in chapter 4, 4.13. Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras are distinguished by the qualities born of their own natures in accordance with the material modes, O chastiser of the enemy. Again, not once, but twice, Krishna clearly explains that the Varna is related to the gunas and karmas. But many self-proclaimed intellectuals who are actually educated illiterates, they know nothing about what is there in the authentic scriptures. So they talk nonsense simply to spread their propaganda according to the instructions of their paymasters. In verse 42, Krishna says, Stamo tamas tapas saucham, shantirajam evacha, jnana vijnana mastikyam, brahma karma svavajam. Peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance, honesty, knowledge, wisdom, and religiousness. These are the natural qualities by which the Brahmanas work. Again, even from this verse, we can clearly see that only those who have these qualities, peacefulness, self-control, austerity, purity, tolerance, honesty, knowledge, wisdom, and religiousness, only those who have these qualities can call themselves Brahmanas. But those who really have these qualities, they won't even dare to say that they are Brahmanas. They will be much more humble than those idiots who claim to be Brahmanas simply because they are born in a Brahmana family. So even when we look at the words of Krishna, Krishna does not say that someone who is born in a Brahmana family becomes Brahmana automatically. Verse 43, Shauryam Tejo Dhritaksham Yuddhe Chapya Palayanam Dhanam Ishvara Bhavascha Shatram Karma Svavajam. Heroism, power, determination, resourcefulness, courage in battle, generosity, and leadership are the natural qualities of work for the Kshatriyas. The Kshatriyas, the ruling class, those who are supposed to be rulers, they need to have heroism, power, determination, resourcefulness, courage in battle. So this is what, as we have seen in the previous chapter from Bhagavatam, in chapter 10 of Bhagavatam, we saw that Krishna installed Yudhishthira as the ruler of Hastinapur. And even when Parikshit Maharaj took over, he expanded the kingdom across the entire Jambudvipa. So such was the quality of true Kshatriyas in those yugas, in Dwapara Yuga and the Yuga before that. But the degradation in Kali Yuga is such that those so-called rulers or so-called kings, they go nowhere near the battlefield. They only use their weapons for photo shoots. And yet they call themselves rulers. But if we look at the qualities of a ruler, the qualities of a Kshatriya. A Kshatriya should have these qualities: heroism, power, determination, resourcefulness, courage in battle, generosity, and leadership. So even to become a Kshatriya, it's not like someone who is born in the family of a Kshatriya becomes a Kshatriya. Even the qualities have to be developed. From the example of Mahabharata, we can see that Dhritarashtra was not made the king because he was not, it's not that he was handicapped, he was also spiritually blind. Not just he was not able to see, but he was also spiritually blind. Unlike Maharaj Pandu, he was more qualified, and that's why even his sons were very virtuous. But even when we consider the childhood of the descendants of both Dhritarashtra and the Pandavas, they were also given training by Drona. So even those who were born in the royal families, they were also trained since childhood. So it's not like power was handed over to them simply because they were born in the royal family. Even they had to participate in wars, unlike the so-called kings of Kali Yuga, who don't go anywhere near the battlefield. Then in verse 44, Krishi Goraksha Vanikyam, Vaishya Karma Swavajam, Parisharyatmakam Karma, Sudrashapi Swavajam. Farming, cow protection, and business are the natural work for the Vaishyas, and for the Shudras, they are labor and service to others. So from all these verses, we can clearly see how the Varnas are closely related to the Gunas and Karmas. So only those who have no knowledge about what has been mentioned in the authentic scriptures, they'll continue to talk nonsense. So again, if you look at the differences between Sanatana Dharma and Varṇāśrama-dharma, even the Varṇāśrama-dharma is meant, it is a materially designated system, especially for our human society, for us to attain our Sanatana Dharma. By being, by practicing our Krishna consciousness, we can still engage in our material duties in Krishna consciousness. So even by being in a certain Varna, all have the chance to transcend the modes and to attain the status of a Vaishnava. That's what Krishna says in the following verse. By following his qualities of work, every man can become perfect. So that's why Krishna created the system, and it has got nothing to do with birth. No matter how much the propaganda masters may try, the truth remains when we follow Gita as it is. So I guess we'll stop here for today. We'll continue with the remainder of the purport next week. Any questions or comments? Hare Krishna.
No, sir. Thank you.
No, sir. No, Prabhu.